All right, get this. Today we're diving headfirst into ancient Egypt. We're talking pyramids, we're talking pharaohs, but most importantly, we're talking about the ruler behind the most famous one of them all, Pharaoh Khufu.
Trying to unravel the mysteries of Khufu, well, it's going to be like piecing together a puzzle from across millennia. But we've got some good pieces to work with, like historical accounts, what archaeologists have found. Oh, and we even get a sneak peek into what everyday life was like for Egyptians back then, all thanks to a 4,500-year-old diary.
Hold on, did you say a 4,500-year-old diary?
Yeah, it's incredible.
Okay, you definitely got my attention now. But before we get sidetracked, let's back up to the big picture I'm talking about, the Great Pyramid of Giza. I mean, how does a pharaoh even convince an entire civilization to build something so massive?
That's the question, isn't it? To really wrap your head around it, you got to understand how Egyptians saw the world back in the Old Kingdom period. We're talking roughly around 2600 BC. So picture this. They were expanding their territory, they're creating this complex bureaucracy, but the most important thing was their belief in the pharaoh's divine right to rule. Khufu wasn't just a king, he was a god king.
So Khufu wasn't just like King Khufu, there was more to it.
Right. He was Khufu. They believed he had the protection of the god. Khnum was the god of creation in the Nile. So basically the Egyptians, they saw him as chosen by the gods. Building the pyramid wasn't just about creating a monument, it was an act of devotion. And this belief, this is what fueled it all, the workforce, the decades it took to build, the sheer amount of resources they used.
That's wild.
Yeah.
But even with that, the logistics of a project like this are mind-boggling. What do we actually know about how they built it?
Well, we've learned a lot thanks to some incredible discoveries. The Diary of Merer, for example.
Yeah.
This papyrus was written by a guy who was basically an overseer at the construction site. And it's amazing we get to see what went on behind the scenes of this huge project. We're not just talking about how many people were working or what they ate. We see how they got those massive stones out of the ground, how they moved them, how they lifted them into place. It's all there. It even talks about stuff like, arguments about the food or disagreements about work. It really gives you a feel for their lives.
Wow, that changes my whole perspective on how the pyramids were built. I always pictured, endless lines of slaves forced into backbreaking labor. This Diary of Mirror makes it seem like it was a lot more complicated than that.
That's right. It challenges that whole myth. The diary, along with other archaeological evidence, it all points to a workforce of, skilled laborers. Some of them were actually treated better than the average Egyptian. They devoted years, sometimes their entire lives, to this project.
Makes you wonder what was going through Khufu's mind as he saw all of this happening. Was he this ruthless tyrant? Like how some of those ancient Greek writers make him out to be.
Now that is the million-dollar question. We've got these conflicting accounts from ancient historians like Herodotus, Manetho, Diodorus Siculus. They all have something different to say about his reign. Herodotus, for example, he paints Khufu as an oppressive ruler, someone who even went as far as closing temples and making people work on his pyramid.
Yeah, that doesn't sound great.
Definitely a bit of a ruthless streak there. But then you have Manetho. Now, Manetho says Khufu reigned for a crazy long time, like 63 years. But he also mentions a sacred book written by the pharaoh himself. Imagine if we ever found that. It could totally change our understanding of him, maybe even show a more spiritual side.
It's like we're trying to understand this puzzle, but half the pieces are missing. We've got these glimpses of a powerful leader, maybe even ruthless at times, but then there are these hints of something more. That sacred book, that sounds like the key to figuring out who Khufu really was.
But hold on, we can't forget about the magic. You mentioned something earlier about magic at Khufu's court. Tell me more about that.
Oh yeah, we can thank the Westcar Papyrus for those stories. Think of it as like a collection of ancient tales. And get this, some of them could even be from Khufu's time. They tell stories about magicians who perform these amazing feats for the pharaoh. Like, picture, they would reanimate a beheaded animal right in front of them.
Reanimating a beheaded animal. Okay, that's just showing off. I know. So it makes you think, right? Was Khufu just fascinated by the unknown? Did he have this thirst for knowledge? Or was he just a ruler high on power, looking for entertainment no matter how morbid? Honestly, it's up for debate. And that's what makes studying this era so fascinating.
So we've got Khufu, this pharaoh who may or may not have been into magic, but who definitely knew how to get things done. But enough about the man. Let's talk about his masterpiece, the Great Pyramid. It's more than just a big pile of rocks, right?
Way more. Think of the Great Pyramid like a giant puzzle chambers, passageways, and of course those star shafts that people have been trying to figure out for, centuries.
Oh, those star shafts always get to me. They're mysterious. What's the deal with those?
Well, the thing about the pyramid's design is it wasn't just about, being big and impressive. It was symbolic. Deeply symbolic. And the star shafts are a perfect example. Scholars have been going back and forth about them forever. Some think they were practical, ventilation shafts to keep the air flowing during construction. But
Don't
others,
tell me they think those shafts had a higher purpose.
you got it. Some think they line up with certain stars on purpose, maybe even representing Khufu's, celestial aspirations, his connection to the cosmos.
Right, because when you're a god king, aiming for the stars makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, so that's the design. But now, for the real question, what treasures were hidden inside this incredible monument?
Okay, well, that's one of the biggest mysteries. Sadly, the king's chamber where they would have put Khufu's sarcophagus, it was looted a long, long time ago.
So all we have are those accounts from people who claim to have seen the treasures.
Pretty much. Although we can get an idea of the riches by looking at other discoveries, like take Tutankhamun's tomb, and he wasn't even a major pharaoh.
Yeah, Tutankhamun was a smaller deal, right?
Totally. So you can only imagine what Khufu's tomb must have been like. Gold, jewels, maybe even chariots, maybe even Khufu's own writings, or, a copy of that sacred book we were talking about, but sadly it's all gone. The only thing left was a sarcophagus made of granite, empty and broken.
That's heartbreaking. Can you imagine being the archaeologist who finally got into that chamber hoping to find, well, anything really, and it's empty? Talk about a letdown. Speaking of mysteries, do we even know for sure if they buried Khufu in the Great Pyramid?
Okay, now, that is the final mystery. You see, most people figure that, yeah, that's where he is. But then you have historians like Diodorus. He claimed that Khufu was so scared of grave robbers, he had them build a secret burial place, hidden away from the pyramid completely.
So there could be another tomb out there, even more amazing than the one we already know.
Wouldn't that be something? If we ever found a tomb like that, it would rewrite history.
After all this, I'm starting to think that. So here we are. We've explored Khufu's legacy, the sheer scale of the Great Pyramid, even those stories about magic and those lost tombs. After all this, after digging through all these different accounts, what do you think? What's the image we're left with?
It's tough to say for sure, isn't it? It's like we're looking at this tapestry, it's got facts, it's got legends, and through it all you see this human fascination with the unknown. I mean, ruthless tyrant or enlightened ruler, Khufu's reign, it makes us think about what motivates powerful people. It makes us think about how entire civilizations can be shaped by their beliefs. And what's really amazing is how much one person, one pharaoh, can still affect us thousands of years later.
You know what? You're right. It is amazing. I mean, this one pharaoh, and he's still so mysterious, but we're still debating who he really was after all this time.
Yeah.
If you ask me, I'm still stuck on those missing treasures. It's like a real-life treasure hunt. You know what I mean?
And the desert's good at keeping secrets. But maybe that's the point, right? Maybe the real treasures aren't gold or jewels. Maybe it's the search itself. It's about trying to understand, trying to unravel the mystery. Maybe that's what keeps Khufu's story alive.
It's like that saying, the journey is the destination, or something like that, right? And we've been on a journey, that's for sure. Quarries, star charts, ancient diaries, lost tombs, all because of one pharaoh who really wanted to make his mark.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty amazing.
And maybe that's the most important thing we can learn from Khufu thousands of years later. And we're still connecting with that desire to know, that desire to leave something behind. It's what connects us all, across time itself.
It really is incredible. Something built so long ago, and it's still making us think, still sparking debate. Hey, to everyone listening, thanks for exploring the world of Pharaoh Khufu with us. We hope you've learned a thing or two, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one to finally uncover all of Khufu's secrets.